Hello and welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. Bill Oram here, sports columnist at the Oregonian and Oregon Live, joined as always by Brenna Greene from KOIN 6 in Portland, Oregon. Brenna, it's game week.
It's game week, baby. We're here. We're both coming into game week, not at 100% right now, but we'll hopefully both get there by Saturday. I don't know about you, but I'll try to get there myself, anyways.
I think I'll be there. I'm going to go to Corvallis for the Oregon State opener, and I have been dealing with a cold and some sinus stuff, which is not atypical of this time of year. I did briefly worry that it was a case of bronchitis, which is not what you call it when you're really excited for Bo Nix's first NFL start. That'd be more like broncho fever.
That was bad. Yeah. All right. You can just sit there in your smugness, or we can.
I do just want to acknowledge the long journey that it has been from last August when Oregon announced that it was making this move to the Big Ten with Washington, and the Pac-12 as we knew it died. And all of the institutional uncertainty and real angst, I think, at least on the Oregon State side, and the uncertainty just of what it's going to look like for Oregon. And then the excitement that built up along the way. And now it's here. Like it's cool. I mean, I know that this is sort of like the meme that's like, oh man, April went by so fast. That one friend who always thinks the month goes by fast. Like, yes, every year there is a new season, but the last year has been kind of unlike any other. And so to actually be on the precipice of this season is exciting. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think, that day when everything went down feels like an eternity ago to me. It feels like like looking back on it now, it kind of feels like I was like in a movie that day, like watching it all go down from above and being like, oh, this is an interesting movie. And now I'm like, oh, it's finally all here. It is really real. So yeah, it just feels so long ago to me. It really doesn't feel like things have gone quickly in terms of that, because I think that we had the whole Pac-12 season to still play out, and there was just so many other things at play that it kind of felt like, oh, and there's football games? Right. Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, so here we are. I will be at Oregon State as well come Saturday, as we are doing a shameless plug. Because their games are on the CW, we're doing post-game shows out of the games. So there you go. There you have it. So I will be live in Corvallis for that.
My rationale is that there's going to be a lot of Oregon games I'm going to be at this year. And just because, big Oregon State games along the way, but it's like, oh, on that weekend, Oregon's hosting Ohio State. Oh, on that weekend, Oregon's at Wisconsin. Oh, on that weekend, Oregon is at Michigan. So it's, Oregon's going to win out a lot of those, like, hey, where should I go this weekend type battles. And Oregon's going to win. I don't know what I picked in the paper today. I think I have Oregon beating Idaho something like 612 to, no, what did I say? I said 61-13. And not that either of these games are going to be close, but, I don't think we're going to learn a whole lot about the Oregon Ducks on Saturday. Maybe not a lot about the Beavers either against Idaho State, a bad Idaho State team, if history is any guide. But I think there's more uncertainty about like who these guys Oregon State has actually are. And so I'm excited to kind of start learning about some of those dudes, because Oregon has a lot of known quantities. But so here's what we're going to do today on the podcast, on the Oregonian Sports Podcast. We're mixing it up. We're not just going to go topic by topic by topic and talk about three different things like we typically do. Brenna, I want to play a game. It's like a game, at least. We're not going to keep score. There's no scorekeeping. Listeners can keep score and let us know what they think. But what I want to do is do a little game of fill in the blank. We're going to go.
Maybe this is something where we revisit this in an episode at the end of the season or something like that and see who had the better predictions.
I think that is a swell idea.
Do you like that idea?
I do. Okay. And we're going to start here. We're going to go back and forth, Oregon and Oregon State. And we're going to start with the first question. And some of these are going to be the same for both schools. As we get a little deeper into it, we're going to diverge a little bit because some of the questions and themes change. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start you with an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
In this season, Oregon will beat blank.
Are we gonna pick like a toss-up game here?
This is up to you.
Okay, this is just up to my interpretation.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, yeah, this could be interpreted in a lot of ways, because you could also just pick a random team if you believe Oregon's going to make the playoffs,
Sure.
which they should.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Like if you picked LSU or something like that. Interesting. A team not on their schedule. I like that.
A team not on their schedule. Yeah, I actually do like that idea of picking a team not on their schedule. Let's look up the AP Top 25 here and see if I can, which I did like a month ago. So I don't remember anything. Oh gosh. Yeah, you want to know what? I like it. It's a spicy take. I think I have to go with it. I think I got to say Oregon's going to beat Georgia. That does not mean they're going to beat Georgia in the national championship game, because who knows what's going to happen.
Sure.
I feel like Georgia is a little bit unsettled this year compared to years past. Yes, they do have the motivation of not making the playoffs last year, which I think people are very much underestimating. But it sure doesn't seem like things are operating super smoothly, and you never know what could happen with Georgia and who gets arrested in the season. So let's go Georgia.
Brenna, that is, of all the the simulations I ran in my head of how we were going to start this game off, I did not have you coming out that hot. Oregon is going to beat Georgia. Like, okay.
Why not?
So Brenna coming in very high on the Ducks, that at some point this year, after the regular season, they will dethrone, I guess not dethrone but they will topple mighty Georgia. Wow. I was of a similar mind, but I wasn't going playoff. I think that Oregon will beat Ohio State.
Okay. All right.
I think that Saturday game in Eugene, you're going to have 60,000 plus there. The Ducks will have had every opportunity to tune up kind of their first 5 games. I don't think they're really going to be threatened or pushed. Ohio State's going to be coming off a tough game against Iowa. I think Oregon is extremely prepared. I think the Ducks win that game at home. But let's flip this to Oregon State now.
Okay, I was going to say one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't think we have this on our sheet because all right. I would like to say I agree with you that Oregon will beat Ohio State, but if it works out that Ohio State is in the Big Ten championship game with them, I'm picking Ohio State in that situation.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay. You'll have an opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to say that. Okay, but let's turn it to the Beavers now.
Okay.
Oregon State will beat who? You've got the full schedule to choose from.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's look at this. Let's look at this lovely schedule here. Let's go with Wazoo. Oregon State will beat Wazoo. I also think they're going to beat Purdue at home.
They should be favored against Purdue, assuming Purdue's as bad as most people think.
Yes.
Wazoo at home, first game of the Left Behind Classic. I did think about a new nickname for that rivalry, by the way, as this starts taking shape as a rivalry. How do you feel about the agriculture war? It's like the culture wars, but the agriculture wars.
I feel like there were, I don't know. I like the land. I like the land grant, something with land grant schools. I like that.
Last year I called it the truce and the Palouse, or truce on the Palouse, but it doesn't work when it's not being played in Pullman.
No, it doesn't. So, I'm okay with that, but I feel like there were some other names that were a little bit more spicy in terms of mine.
I like that pick. The Beavers lost a close one in Martin Stadium last year. a great game. I mean, it was a close game, but not that close. I mean, they kind of had to rally down the stretch to make it close. The Cougs kind of took it to them in quarters 2 and 3. I like that pick. I'm going to go simpler. I'm bringing it down a notch. I'm just going to say that Oregon State is going to beat San Diego State.
Yeah,
now,
well, yeah, I hope
that's not a a terribly controversial opinion. I think most people think that the Beavers are going to beat San Diego State, but we don't know how good the Beavers are. We don't know how good Giovanni McCoy is going to be at quarterback. We don't know if they're going to need to make a quarterback change in week 2. We don't know if these receivers are going to hold up. We have no idea if Jam Griffin and Hankerson can combine to actually replicate the production of Damian Martinez. Like, I just, the defense, is the offensive line as good as, it will need to be? I mean, you're replacing a ton of experience and talent there. The defensive line, I mean, there's just so many questions. Like, you'd think, like, looking at the roster, that Oregon State has more talent than a lot of these, like, middling Mountain West schools. That said, I mean, Sean Lewis is a first-year coach at San Diego State. He's an extremely popular and well thought of coach who had a ton of success at Akron. Obviously, things didn't work out as a coordinator in Colorado with Dion. I just think that Kent State, Akron, Kent State. Which one am I thinking of? Kent State. But I think that San Diego State shouldn't be taken too lightly, and I think we'll start getting kind of a sense of who the Beavers are in that game. I think they'll win, but I think that they have a lot to prove kind of as they go along before I start saying, oh, they're going to beat Purdue, oh, they're going to beat Colorado State, oh, they're going to beat Nevada. So I want to start seeing it against San Diego State. So I'm going to kind of start the bar low for the Beavers just because of how little we know about them as a team right now.
I think that's I think that is totally fair for the Beavs. We will this is going to be a fascinating few weeks just to kind of see what this team is like, because it's just a different, I mean, Oregon's going to be playing at a different level this year, but it feels like way more is known about what their capabilities are compared to the Beavers. I mean, the Beavers could be god awful or they could be really good. We just don't know. That it's just such a wide spectrum.
Okay, now we're going to flip it. We're going to invert it. And by the way, I think I left this off the list. I sent you the final list of questions we were going to do, so that might be why you thought I was. But it was on my original pitch to you.
Okay.
Oregon will lose to who?
Okay. Well, I already said it.
You did say.
I think Oregon's going to lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. So, yeah, I mean, I think that Ohio State's going to just have more experience. They don't have to travel 3 time zones to Indianapolis. I guess one of the nice things for the Ducks is it technically is a 5 p.m. West Coast game for them, because the game is supposed to start at 8 p.m. East Coast time, which is kind of crazy. So I guess that is one of the nice things that they have, is that it's not going to be like this, like it's going to feel a little bit more normal for them than it could for Ohio State in that situation. This is obviously, who knows? It could be 2 totally different teams in that game. But yeah, I just think that I just don't think that the Ducks, if they get Ohio State twice, I just don't think they're going to get them both times. And that is more of an Ohio State friendly environment. It's closer to there. Oregon fans are not going to want to spend a lot of money to travel to the Big Ten championship when
I disagree with that.
Really, when they foreseeably have so many games in the playoff coming up. That's fair.
That's fair. And especially if it's, their playoff team kind of no matter what happens in the Big Ten championship game. I just think I don't think Oregon fans are going to be able to get enough of this season. And when you're talking about a game against Ohio State, I don't think it matters if it's in the Horseshoe or at Autzen or Lucas Oil. I just think that people will turn out. Like, will individual people make the calculus, okay, if I can go to one more game this year, am I going to go to Indianapolis or am I going to go to a playoff game? I think that's fair. But I think there will be a healthy enough contingent of Oregon fans at that game that it will not be. I mean, Ohio State can drive. I get it. But it's going to be way more Ohio State fans. It's going to be a home game for them. Sure. Okay. So I said that Oregon was going to beat Ohio State, and I am completely with you. I also think they will lose to Ohio State. I think that this season you will see both. I think, and I'm going to allow for the possibility that it's the other way around. But I think, just like I wouldn't have expected Oregon to lose both those Washington games last year, and it did happen, obviously. But like, I think like common sense would be it would be really difficult for two teams that are on relatively the same level to lose twice to the same team. And I think, whichever one of those games that Oregon wins or loses, I think they'll get Ohio State once. I think they will lose to Ohio State once. And then, like, I'm even allowing for the possibility that there is a third matchup, because that could happen in the playoff too. They'll be on opposite ends of the sides of the bracket, obviously, but like, it is not inconceivable that you could see an Ohio State Oregon matchup at the end of the year. So, in that scenario, I've got Oregon beating Ohio State, Oregon losing to Ohio State, and then if it happens a third time, unprecedented third time, I have no idea what to think of that.
Yeah, that feels like more of a toss-up in that situation.
Sure. Because if it did get to like a national championship, where is the national championship this year? I should know this from my...
the national championship is in Atlanta!
Right. So, I mean, a home game for Dan Lanning and the Athens crew, but that's about that.
It's
okay.
a long ways away.
From Athens? Not from like
anybody. No, I meant from here.
Yes, it is. Okay. So same question. I'm intrigued to see where you go with this. Oregon State will lose to who?
Boise State.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
I've seen they're going to Boise State, playing Boise State the last game of the season.
Short week.
So, you've got a short week. I'm just looking at my schedule right now. You've got a short week, and it's a 6-day turnaround there. As somebody who covered a few Nevada teams who went to Boise State and got smoked, it's not an easy place to play whatsoever. Boise State, I think, is going to be motivated because, as things go the way people think they're going to go right now, Boise State, it should be a situation for Boise State where it's like, if you guys win this game, like, you're that much closer to going to the playoff. They're the most popular group of 5 team right now to go.
I mean, it could very well like win and you're in. Like that could be where they are at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be I'd think that they'd have.
Oh, I guess there's a Mountain West championship game now.
Yeah, there is a Mountain West championship game. Yeah. So I think that they would, but I guess maybe it'd be a situation going into that Oregon State game where it doesn't really matter. I mean, and you have to remember that these Oregon State games don't count towards Mountain West standings. Yeah. But still, I just see them wanting to come out and make a statement at that game at home and let it rip. So I think all the factors for Oregon State going into that game are not friendly to the Beavers. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I think that is the obvious pick on the schedule outside of Oregon. Yes. I think it's a very good pick. I think you are on the right track. But I also find some intrigue in trying to pick out the under the radar L's, because I don't think this is going to be a 10-2 Beaver team that only loses to Oregon.
I have a thought on an under the radar
and
L.
Boise. Well, let me get mine out and then we can discuss.
No, I'm gonna let you.
And there are some good teams on the schedule, by the way. I mean, when you look at possible losses, like Oregon State's going to be favored in a lot of these first 6-7 games. But I mean, Colorado State, not a pushover. Nevada, but on the road at Nevada can be tough. UNLV on the rise. That's a better team than it has been in the past. It's a bowl team last year. They have a good coach. But the one I'm going with, Cal could be a loss. The one I'm going to go with is Air Force coming to Corvallis on November 16th, the greatest day of a given year, November 16th, my birthday. And Oregon State's never played Air Force. And not to say that you have to have played them to be familiar with the wing tee, but I think that is going to create some problems for Oregon State. It's late in the season. You're probably going to be banged up defensively. And Air Force just has a way of winning these games. They started 8-0 last year. New quarterback, by the way. And Brenna, I'm going to give you a second here. I need you to look up Air Force's quarterback, because he is maybe my favorite player in college football, based at least on his headshot. If you look, his name is is John Busha, Busha, nicknamed Bush. And if you can get John Busha's photo up, he is a 6'2" junior, by the way. He's been in the system. So I think that's important too. Obviously you've been in the system because you're in the Air Force. But John Busha in uniform, wearing glasses with a nice part down the mid center of his hair, good strong jawline. He looks like a guy who like will bury you in a flurry of of options and rocket counters and wing counters. And then once you're bruised and covered in sod, nearing tears, he'll sell you like a home and life insurance policy, or teach you trigonometry. Like, this guy looks like he is 37 years old. I know that because I'm 37. And when I look at that picture, I see a peer. I see someone I would expect to see in the aisles at Safeway on a Sunday morning buying bacon for his two kids, like myself. Like, that is a dad. And he is the quarterback at Air Force who's going to be coming to Corvallis on November 16th, ready to kill, basically. So I'm scared of John Busha. I'm scared of Air Force. I do think that is a trouble spot on the Beavers' schedule. And, a game they'll lose, if we think there's 4 losses in the regular season, maybe, which would be a good season, I think, all things told, I think Air Force could very well be one of them. What were you going to say was the potential L on their calendar?
Yeah. So first of all, I love the Air Force pick because I covered a bowl game with Washington State and Air Force in it, in which the Cougs had, a month to prepare for Air Force, and they still got just demolished by them. It was brutal to watch in terms, I guess it wasn't demolished, but it was like Air Force controlled that game from the beginning until the end. I forget how long of a drive they had. I think it was their second drive of the game, but I think it took up like the entirety of the first quarter, like almost the entirety of the first quarter, something like that. It was crazy to watch. So I think that's a great pick. I'm gonna go with Colorado State.
You already picked Boise State. Oh, Colorado State was your I see. I'm sorry. Okay, sorry.
Jeez, wow.
I'm not giving you extra swings at the pinata here, but I was curious. Colorado State. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I like Colorado State because they were able to. They were basically able to keep their quarterback and their top wide receiver this year because they were able to shell out money. That is a program. It's a really fascinating program, actually, when you just look at it from the fact that I have a little bit more knowledge in terms of that situation just because I covered Nevada. Nevada's head coach went from Nevada to Colorado State, which seems like a lateral move, but from everything I've been told, it was a significant pay raise at Colorado State for him. So that is a program that does not lack money. It has good resources, and I think it's kind of on the upswing. When you've got a quarterback that's getting recruited by Power 5 schools and he chooses to stay there, you've got something good going on. So, I think I'm going to pick Jay Norvell and the Rams in that situation.
Okay, I like that pick. Obviously, I think Colorado State sort of made a statement last year with their game against Colorado. People were like, I think people thought Colorado was better than they were at the time, but Colorado State, certainly, I think was America's team for a while. Okay, I want to get through these because we got some fun ones coming up. But I do want to know a win total for you on the Ducks, and then we'll do the Beavers. But how many games do you think the Ducks win?
Okay, are we going regular season for the Ducks here?
The whole enchilada.
The whole enchilada. F. Okay.
Between now and January 20th, the end of January 20th, how many games? Okay.
I'm like, I gotta you're making me do math this early on a Friday morning.
There are four potential wins in the playoff and 12 games on the regular season schedule, plus a Big Ten championship. So maximum of 17.
Maximum of 17. I'm going one random loss in the middle of the year. Hard to go on the road at Michigan and Wisconsin, I think. So then 2 losses, Big Ten championship. In that situation, I think you're playing 4 games. if you have that opportunity. So I'm going 14-3. I think they lose in the semis. But if I pick Georgia, I think they'd play Georgia in the semis.
So so you've got them.
Oh wait, that would be 13-3. So then I think actually since I picked Georgia, I'm going 14-3 and them losing in the national title game.
11-1 in the regular season, 11-2 after the Big Ten.
Yes.
And then they win 3 in the and lose in the national championship game.
Yes.
So you have them at 14-3. Okay.
Yes.
I think it is. I'm with you through the Big Ten championship. I've got them at 10-2. No, sorry, 11-2 through the Big Ten championship. I don't know if I believe they're getting to the national championship game. I just think that is such a gauntlet that I think
I feel you.
I think they're good enough. I think
not getting that bye is difficult.
I think so you win the first round, you're at 12. I think anything north of 12 is a crapshoot. I'm going to sit at 12. I'm going to say they win 12 and bow out in the quarterfinals. But I don't really have a great reason why. Like there's no one thing I look at and say, oh, well, they're going to lose because they're weak in the secondary. It's not that. It's just that conceptually it's going to be so hard to win 4 playoff games for any team. And we haven't, and the Ducks, and I think I have a little bit of fool me once about the Ducks in big games right now.
I agree with you.
Haven't been able to beat Washington. Those have been big games. You've been on the precipice. I've used precipice a couple times here. Need to find a new word. The verge. They've been on the brink of reaching the college football playoffs in each of Dan Lanning's first 2 years, and they haven't been able to get it done. A couple of reasons for that. I mean, Bo Nix got hurt against Washington in 22. I don't think that's anybody's fault. Couldn't get it done in the Pac-12 title game last year. I want to see it before I start anointing. So I'm going to stick at 12. I think my math's right there, but that's where I'm at. Okay. The fun ones now. Can we do the fun ones? I think they're fun. I don't know how fun they are. We're going to find out.
Do we need to do Oregon State win total?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped it. Yeah. What do you got?
And
this would again, maximum of 16 because they can't play in a Big Ten or in a conference championship game, but they could conceivably run the table and perhaps still get into the playoff. And so max of 16 for the Beavs.
Max of 16. Yeah, I'm not picking them to go to the college football playoffs. I'm sorry, Beaver fans. Let's see here. I'm just perusing this schedule. Yeah. All right. I'm going 7-5 in the regular season bowl game. We'll go 8-5. 8-5.
I really think this schedule for the Beavers is advantageous. The only two games that I really think they're going to be, maybe there's 4 games. I don't know. I think there's only 2, maybe 3 games that at this point in the season, having not seen them, that I think they're going to be underdogs in. Underdogs against Oregon. I think underdog at Boise State. Potentially Cal. I think there are landmines along the way in this schedule, but I give them the upper hand in the majority of these matchups. I think this is an 8-win regular season team.
Okay.
Bowl game. I put so little in bowl games at this point that aren't in the playoff with the transfer portal and opt-outs and NFL prep and all that. I just expect everybody to lose their bowl game because nobody seems to care. So I'll go 8 with a bowl game loss. But I think that's an exceptional season, by the way. If that comes to bear, all things that have happened with Oregon State. I mean, they won 8 games last year. Obviously, different set of circumstances, but for Trent Bray to come in his first year and win 8 games, I've been pretty cool on the Beavs since everything kind of broke down. And then, of course, there's always optimism with a new season. Oh, did you see so and so in camp and blah blah blah? But the Beavers have some FBS talent on this roster, and I think they know what they're doing. I've talked myself into Giovanni McCoy, by the way, and I know we've talked a lot on this podcast about Giovanni McCoy being probably not the guy at Oregon State, that he wouldn't win the job. And he did win the job, and I was surprised, and I'll eat all the crow on that. But you do start thinking, okay, this guy's got 23 college starts. He's played big games. He has made big plays in meaningful moments. He's played in the playoffs. I can talk myself into him as just an absolute gamer. I do worry that there's a better chance of injury at this level. He's not very big. So, I mean, but I've talked myself into Giovanni McCoy as the guy at Oregon State. Okay, so I'm at 8, you're at 7, you're at 14, I'm at 12 on the Ducks. Let's get to the fun ones now. I've teased these long enough. Okay, Oregon's leading receiver will be.
The man's on a mission. I gotta pick Tez Johnson. I know. It's not a like, oh, that's an off the beaten path pick or anything like that. But the man's lock screen literally is the NFL logo right now. And it is going to be the NFL logo for the entire season. He is a man trying to prove everyone wrong, and I think it is still burning very bright in him, even if he had success last year, because now he has another goal. And I'm sure that everybody says he's undersized for the NFL, because to be completely frank, he is.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Anthony Gould from Oregon State just made a 53-man roster, and he's smaller than Tez. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, but I can see Tez really using that as some motivation. So, I gotta go Tez. The man's just he's too much fun. I gotta pick Tez.
There's so many good receivers. Like, that's what interested me about this. There's just so many dudes. Evan Stewart, Gary Bryant, Trayshawn Holden, and Tez. But I think Tez is going to have the most catches, because like Tez to me is like an every down receiver, and you can put him in deep situations, and then he's also going to get a lot of yards after catch. I think those other guys might kind of take catches away from each other, whereas Tez is the most unique and, based on his experience here, the most reliable receiver in that group. Tez caught let me pull up his stats from last year. Tez caught 86 passes for almost 1,200 yards last year and had 10 touchdowns. Now, granted, he had his brother at quarterback, and that, maybe there was a little bit of favoritism, but he was a really steady hand a year ago. I would only expect him to be better. So I also give it to Tez, even though he's not your traditional like first option receiver. Maybe I think Tez is the right answer. Oregon State, we're going to flip it. With them, I'm interested, Brenna, who do you think their leading rusher will be?
Jam. I think it has to be Jam. I mean, he's somebody who has it's not his first rodeo at Oregon State. It sure seems like they're really, really high on him. And I mean, I don't think that Hankerson is going to be a bad backup by any stretch of the imagination, but I gotta go Jam. It's just it's an advantageous situation for him. So,
really unique situation with Jam Griffin. He was on the roster 2 years ago, had a really big run in that game against USC at home that the Beavers nearly won, or maybe even should have won. I would say should have won. They should have beat USC. I'm so intrigued by Hankerson. I actually thought he was a real bright spot in the spring game. Neither of these guys are very big, and I think you can lean on both of them. What do I want to do? I hate to agree again, but I will also go Jam, because, for now he's number one on the depth chart. He is a little more seasoned. I think he's going to be motivated. He went to Ole Miss last year and got buried on the depth chart, ended up not having really any opportunity at Ole Miss, comes back to Oregon State, new OC, new system, but familiar system. I think it's jam, but you're going to see a lot of Anthony Hankerson, and then they've got a couple other guys too, and including Jake Reichel, by the way, who's going to be. It's interesting. Like, you think of Jake Reichel as like a fullback, and Trent Bray has said like they view him still very much as a big tailback. So it's going to be interesting to see how they end up using Jake Reichel. But I mean, he's going to be more of a situational guy as opposed to somebody who's going to be contending for leading the team in carries and yards. So Jam Griffin. Okay, this one I like. Blank tries to hire Dan Lanning after the season. Dan Lanning will tell anybody who asks that he has got his final job, that he is not leaving, that he's at Oregon until global warming kills us all. That said, I've never known the college football world, to let that stop them from making a phone call and making their overtures. And I have a feeling that Dan Lanning would tell his agent, well, I mean, you should probably at least pick up the phone. Because if you remember what Jonathan Smith said last year, if you've got an agent and they're not at least talking to people, what are you paying them for? So until you come to me and say Dan Lanning has fired his agent because he doesn't ever need to renegotiate a contract or anything else because he is set at Oregon forever, they will at least be, I believe there will at least be talking. And I think if history is any guide, around late November, December, we will start hearing that blank is gearing up for a run at Dan Lanning in hopes that they can be the ones to lure him away out of Eugene. Who is it?
Your dog sounds very distraught.
I'm sorry.
Over this potential question of Dan Lanning leaving. I mean,
big Duck fan.
Ooh,
he likes to hunt him.
I got a good one. I think I'm going Clemson.
Okay.
I think Dabo's unwillingness to use the transfer portal keeps biting him, and maybe this year isn't as successful as they hope it will be, because I mean, right now in the AP Top 25, Clemson is 14th. That is not where Clemson should be.
Sure.
So if things go wrong again this year, I could see some things changing around there. And yeah, let's go Clemson.
Okay. There are some intriguing college jobs that could open up. Mm-hmm. Florida comes to mind.
Florida.
Because Billy Napier is on his last legs there, it would seem. Big game against Mario and Miami this weekend. Does Dan Lanning bite for Florida? A chance to coach the Gators at the Swamp? Does he view that as a better job than Oregon with all the resources he has? I don't know. That one's on my radar. But I don't view Florida as a better opportunity than necessarily than some of the schools that have come calling over the last couple of years. Auburn, A&M, Alabama.
Well, we don't know if Alabama actually came calling, but
Brenna, riddle me this. How do we think Dan Lanning feels about the NFL? And how do we think he would feel? I've got 3 jobs in the NFL that I could see coming open. The Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams, a team that is ready to take a jump and start contending. The Dallas Cowboys, the most prestigious brand in the NFL, a program waiting for a savior to take it. That's fine. I'll pronounce things the way I want to on my program. Dan, thank you. The Dallas Cowboys, in need of a savior. Mike McCarthy got a little stale there. The Pittsburgh Steelers, closer to home for Dan. He's familiar with Pittsburgh from his time at Pitt. Another legacy franchise. Could he say no? I think he could. I think he could turn down friggin' anybody. I think he would turn down Manchester United to stay at Oregon. But somebody's going to come calling. And I think money on the table. I think the Chicago Bears try.
You think the Chicago Bears? Yeah, I mean, I don't see the Cowboy. I feel like Jerry Jones wants to go with somebody who has NFL experience at this point in his life. So in my eyes, I'm like, Cowboys probably not. Yeah, I don't think Pittsburgh. I mean, who knows? I mean, gosh, Dan's got to look at that and be like, if that were to be an option for him, it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with the quarterback situation?
Yeah.
Woof, baby. So yeah, maybe the Bears.
I mean, do you think that Matt Eberflus is the man to take Caleb Williams to the promised land? I think not. I
have no idea.
But here's what I will say. And you made a really good point, by the way, in your Clemson take, which I like. I don't know if I like it more than him waiting for, say, Georgia in 5 years or whatever it might be. But Dan is the master of this era of college football. I give him all of his roses for having one foot in, being a traditional, hardcore football man, and completely understanding the modern era that he is in. Mm-hmm. He is, I mean, listen, there's some results we need to get to before you can start saying all these things. Mm-hmm. But I think he is sort of the perfect coach for this era. And I think as you see success come with that over the next several years, if they can get to the mountaintop, I don't know if he would. College football sucks, by the way. Being a college football coach is a grueling job in a way that almost no other sport is, in dealing with transfers, NIL, 365-day-a-year job. I mean, college basketball too, but just the intensity of college football.
Yes.
He is a master of it at this point. Now, would there be a point where he burns out a little bit and thinks maybe the NFL might have a pace that is a little more palatable, maybe better for him with his kids, maybe better for him with his wife? I think that's possible. I don't know if he's there yet. I feel like he's still got a lot of balls in the cannon still to go. But the NFL has lured a lot of people from great jobs over the years, and I think that's probably where if he was to leave. At some point, I think that could be where he would look next. Okay. Moving on to an Oregon State one here. Oh, we've talked about this a little bit. Who will be Oregon State's starting quarterback in November? Blank will be Oregon State's starting quarterback in November.
Ben Gulbranson.
Why?
I think that it is I think it could be a combination of things for me. One, you pointed out the fact that Giovanni's a dual threat guy. They like that, which is great. By the way, somebody made a point to me the other day. When was the last time Oregon State had a true dual threat quarterback? I don't remember. It's been a long time.
They tried with Seth Collins. He had a moment. Lyle Moivau, not your traditional dual threat guy, but he could run. Also could block. But yeah, that's not a great tradition of mobile quarterbacks. You know what's interesting about Giovanni, by the way, Brenna? We think of him as such a mobile quarterback, and he really is. But I mean, how many yards would you think that he rushed for last year? I mean, just
600.
No, it's way less. I need to pull it up. Sorry, I'm trying to get there.
I get there.
It's 188 yards.
What?
He did not carry the ball a lot for the Vandals. What he would do would be scramble a lot. I remember, my memories of Giovanni are that terrible offensive line at Idaho breaking down and him having to create and him scrambling and getting out of pressure, getting away from pressure, but still throwing the ball downfield. And, I would have to go back and look at film, which is not something I do. But, they did not have a lot of designed runs for him. Now, I think some of that is that, they were a passing offense. The other part of it is like, you've got a pretty slight quarterback. He is listed at a whopping 182 pounds, 6 foot, 182 pounds. You stand next to him. I mean, he's not a beefy guy. So, how much do you actually want to be putting your quarterback out there on the run? I just think it's notable that he did not run as much as you would have thought last year.
Yeah, great point.
Jabari Johnson, I think, is a guy also who in that quarterback race, they like his legs as well. I think, it's funny because I think we were both kind of trending toward Ben being the starter in the opener. And then there was some thought, and then they go with Jabari Johnson as the change of pace quarterback, and Giovanni was the odd man out. So I really don't know how to think of this like quarterback rotation necessarily now that Giovanni is the guy, or at least is the first guy to get a crack at it. If they like the mobility and they like the dual threat nature of his skill set, and something happens where he is not able to continue due to injury or because he turns the ball over too much, do they look to Jabari Johnson next? I mean, Ben is still there. And Ben is sort of, I hate to, always the bridesmaid, never the bride sort of situation this, but, if Jabari doesn't work, you've got Ben. And so I almost think that if something does happen to Giovanni, they would give Jabari a chance before saying, okay, Old Faithful Ben, Dr. Ben, get out there. So who's the quarterback by November? I'll say Giovanni just because he hasn't had injuries and, we haven't, I don't want to predict an injury for a guy. I think that, again, like I said, I've talked myself into him just given the experience and the success he had at Idaho. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's any of these guys, but I will go on record as saying Giovanni.
The other thing for me is that I see Bray he's just kind of a personality that is not like a risk-taking personality. And Giovanni is more of a, you mentioned the scrambling, that sort of stuff. He's more of a freelancing, wheeling and dealing quarterback a little bit. And so I could see that not, with that comes some risks.
Very out of character for Oregon State. Like very out of character for the Beavers to get away from kind of the bread and butter. They've not I'm excited to see what it looks like because
me too.
You suddenly have a quarterback who the offense is kind of about. I mean, if he has the same freedom that he had at Idaho, and maybe he doesn't, but that was his gift. That's his magic, is sort of his ability to improvise and create on the fly. And if he has that kind of freedom, I mean, Oregon State fans have not seen a player like that ever. Yeah. And it's been a long time. This could be a very exciting moment for Oregon State. If Giovanni is able to keep turnovers down. He actually didn't turn it over as much at Idaho as I thought he did, going back and looking at the numbers. Didn't throw as many picks as I thought he did. But also the defenses are a lot better. And but if that offensive line can protect him, there's a chance that maybe, the Beavers have something special. So curious to see, very excited to see. We're not going to learn a whole lot in week 1 against Idaho State, as I wrote about this week. Jack Lane, who is Idaho's starting quarterback this week against the Ducks, started against Idaho State for the Vandals last year. Giovanni was injured. Only a second career start for Jack Lane, who is from Lake Oswego, was the Oregon Gatorade Player of the Year back in 21. He threw for 6 touchdowns and had 53 points on the board by halftime against Idaho State. So you could convince me that Giovanni McCoy could do almost anything against the Bengals this weekend, and I wouldn't read too much into it, but interested to see it. We have 2 more.
Shall we move on to the next spicy question?
So we are now into the institutional uncertainty portion of the program. Oregon fans with Comcast will be able to watch live events on the Big Ten Network by when?
I'm going next Tuesday. I think that Comcast is going to take the smoke for a weekend. They want their money. and they don't care. And they realize that people have short memories. And I could see them definitely. I started this podcast thinking, maybe it'll be resolved by today. I think it'll get resolved by today. But as I thought about it more, I thought to myself, these cable companies want every ounce of cash they can get currently. And like I said, this is our culture is one with short memories. So I'll go. They take the heat for a weekend. I'll go Tuesday.
Well, I'll take the over on that. So like if we're playing like Price is Right rules.
Yeah.
I say never.
Never.
I mean, I am wounded, scarred by the various issues that those of us in Oregon have had over the years, that Dodger fans had in LA for a long time, that exist on lots of platforms, where networks and cable providers have this like stalemate for years. So never, maybe not never, but like by the time, there's any budge, is anybody still on Comcast hoping for this? Like anybody who needed to watch live events on Big Ten Network in these new markets has moved on. So, and that's the risk for Comcast, is like, how long can we hold firm here before we lose, a decent chunk of our subscriber base, because this matters to your Comcast subscribers in Oregon. And by the way, the real losers here, yes, the football fans, but the Ducks are going to be on Big Ten Network twice this year. They're going to play Idaho, and maybe they're going to play like Maryland on the Big Ten Network. Those are the games you maybe wouldn't mind like taking a walk during anyway. But like the volleyball team, one of the best volleyball programs in the country, the soccer team, the basketball teams, those are the programs and whose fans are going to suffer, because that's where you can see them. So for the sake of those programs, I hope that it gets sorted out so people in the state can see them. But obviously football drives the bus. So I think this is going to last a while. I hope that's not the case. I hope you're correct. That said, if you're going to sort it out by Tuesday, sort it out by Saturday. That would be my request. Just like from the school of do the right thing. If this is going to be a short-term, game of chicken, let's get this resolved sooner than later. Last question, Brenna Greene from KOIN 6 in Portland, Oregon, is about your Oregon State Beavers. And it has to do with realignment, of course, because all things have to do with realignment. The Beavers are approaching the deadline to re-up their contract with the Mountain West for another year. Next year, Oregon State will be playing in blank.
Same sitch. I think it's the same situation next year. Now, if you ask me a year after that, that's where I get a little bit dicey on things. But for this, I think we got a 2-year Mountain West situation. I've said that now twice on this podcast. I don't know what's going on with me today.
I have precipice. You have that.
Yes, exactly.
That's what the P stands for. Precipice.
I think. Great reference in an audio medium.
We are on YouTube. The people are watching on YouTube.
That's exactly what it is.
I'm wearing a P hat. We got another Mountain West year on deck. What say you? I agree, because I think it maximizes their flexibility. There is I don't know what other option would be on the table at this point, unless, they tried to play a full independent schedule, which would be really challenging and doesn't make any more sense than what they're currently doing. I think playing in the Mountain West allows them to play this hybrid Mountain West schedule, allows them to frankly have some success. Not to denigrate the Mountain West, it's a really good conference, but if you can win 8 games these next 2 years, stay in bowl games, be floating around the edge of a top 25 maybe, I think it keeps you relevant as a football program. And Grum. So I think that this, and then at the end of 2025, you start thinking, okay, what is happening in the SEC? Has the SEC fallen apart? Is the Big Ten trying to pick up the pieces of the ACC? And can we get in on that? Is there a coast to coast version of the Big Ten, or excuse me, the Big 12 that we could be a part of? Is it time that we start bringing schools into a new Pac-12? I think you're right that 2026 is when we're going to see something different. But for one more year, I think it's this Mountain West hybrid. Against some of these schools, but then also some of the schools that they're not playing on this schedule. Like there's room to play Fresno State, Wyoming, and some of the other Mountain West, New Mexico that weren't on the schedule this year.
Well, this was fun. I'm excited to revisit this come December or January or whenever we do it. Whenever we revisit.
I've kept track of our answers, and I look forward to doing the same. So I'll see you at the stadium tomorrow, Research Stadium. For the new era of Beaver football, the Giovanni McCoy era is here. We'll find out if he is the real McCoy, so to speak. That's a saying.
What? It's a saying? No way.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Oregonian Sports Podcast. We appreciate your support. Continue to read the Oregonians coverage of both the Ducks and Beavers over at OregonLive.com and in print at the Oregonian, which you can pick up wherever newspapers are sold. And you can continue watching Brenna Greene's outstanding coverage on KOIN 6 in Portland, Oregon, and on Instagram.
And on the CW.
And on the CW postgame show. Sorry, forgot to shout that out. Watch Brenna on the CW.
If Oregon State wins, we're getting live one-on-one interview with the player. So that'll be fun. That'll be good stuff.
Cool.
So,
look forward to that. All right.
Yep.
Brenna, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Peace out, Girl Scout.